Kristen, do you want us to be muted?
Beg your pardon?
Do you want us to be muted for the most part, or?
You guys choose when you want to mute and when you don't, as needed. If you are worried about noise that's going on in your house, but I want you to be able to participate. So we have 11 attendees. Can you all see the attendee list? Have you found it?
Yeah, we're up to what, 22, 25.
25.
But I don't see the people.
You have to open up your attendees.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so there's enough people that I wonder if I can get it to double row, that I'm gonna have to scroll up and down to see if anybody raises their hand. So you'll have to give me a minute to double check all this. All right. I think I've got everybody visible now. Well, most of it. All right. So,
Okay.
I don't really see the names of the people or the people. Do other people?
yep.
No.
So you have to go to the menu that comes up at the bottom when you put your cursor there. It gives you a
Yeah.
bar. And if you look, one of the selections is attendees
Well, I have participants. I
or
don't have.
participants, right?
Uh-huh.
That's fine. Click on participants and you'll get two options, panelists, which is us, or attendees.
Oh, or attendees. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
And Kristen, as people, if people want to join in later during the progress of the meeting, they can join. You can let
Sure.
them in.
You don't have to, they can just join. It
Oh, they
doesn't
just join.
require,
Okay.
it doesn't require any authentication. They can just join in and leave as they wish.
Okay. All right. Well, we should probably get started then. Okay, so today is Thursday, February 10th, and this is the Zoom meeting of the Heritage Preservation Board. I guess I'll start by taking roll. As I call your name, just say present. Sonia Gallant, Vice Chair. Me, Chair, Hillary Culhane. Carol Goldberg.
Present.
Lelia Langtote.
Present.
Rich Storick.
Present.
Okay, all right. So the first item on the agenda, as always, is if there is public comment, persons wishing to address the board on items not on the agenda. So if anybody would like to speak up about something that's not pertaining to tonight's agenda, it's your chance.
I have two hands raised. I'm going to allow you to talk, and I want to remind you that this is for matters not on tonight's agenda. You need to unmute yourself. Okay, Goldman or Goldstein, you can, if you unmute yourself, you can speak.
Okay, I guess I pushed the wrong button. I'm sorry. So go ahead.
Oh, you didn't mean to speak?
No, I didn't mean to. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So
Was there another one?
lower her hand. Okay, and then we have FC. You're allowed to talk. You need to unmute yourself, please.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, it's Fran Capoletti.
Hi, Fran.
Hi,
I had
Fran.
meant to
Hello, Fran.
plan a talk sometime, but things got a little crazy, but hopefully in the future I can. It's a sign of the times. There's another Zoom right now on storybook architecture in Berkeley. And double tasking, but I certainly wanted to attend tonight and appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Good to hear you, friend.
Thank you.
And Fran, we're
Okay.
going to discuss your offer at the end of the meeting after we're done with the hearing item.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so
And-
moving on to the planning staff's
Wait, we
oral
still have
report.
one more hand up.
Oh, okay, a third person.
Yes, Kate Lynch, Spyglass. You need. Hello?
This is Kate Lynch. Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Great, hi. Nice to meet all of you, and thank you for opening this up for public comment. I'm representing a number of residents and owners over at Spyglass Condominiums. About a week ago, we dropped off a petition to the building department asking that they decline a permit requisition for cutting down a grove of heritage redwoods that are on the property here at Spyglass. And my question to the committee is this the right committee for us to?
No. The Heritage Preservation Board works to protect and preserve historic structures in Larkspur. The city takes in and processes heritage tree removal permits and does a public notice. And if there's an objection, then it goes to the Park and Recreation Committee for hearing.
You know, that's an interesting point because there is no more historic structure than a beautiful tree.
I think she's gone. Okay,
No, it's for our,
okay.
Okay.
I guess we
Any
answered.
more public comments on items not on agenda tonight? Okay, let's move on to the
Wait,
planning
I
staff.
have one more.
Oh, okay.
Kay Cummings? You can speak if you unmute yourself.
I just want to salute the guy who just said there's nothing more beautiful than an old structure of a tree. But I'm glad that you pointed us in the right direction because we want to save these trees. Thank you.
All right. I think we're done. All right. Okay, we have two more hands raised still. And just to be clear, these are on matters not on the agenda. There's two hands raised. Do you wish to keep your hand raised? Okay. So, Dick, you are free to speak if you unmute yourself.
Hi,
Hello?
Kristen. This is Richard Cunningham. My problem is just that I don't have the picture yet, but I'm following along. So
Okay.
raising my hand was simply a way to try to activate these features, and I can't get it.
Okay, I'm gonna take your hand down then and mute you again.
I will lower my hand there. Thank you.
All right.
For the new people, Dick was a member of the Heritage Board for years and years.
Mhm. I'm glad he's here.
Dick is a historic asset.
Definitely.
Anyone else? Okay,
Oh, wait.
Kristen.
Okay, I think they made a mistake. They took their hand away. Okay, good.
All right, Kristen, you take the floor.
All right. Well, what we have tonight is a public hearing on application HDR-VHT 2135 for 9 Murray Lane. The applicants are proposing some pretty extensive remodeling and expansion of the 2,361 square foot historic residence and adding about 2,800 square feet, I believe, is what's in the proposal for a total of 5,666 square feet. Part of the plan also includes the demolition of an existing 409 square foot historic cottage and other additional site improvements such as a new front driveway, the retention of the existing single car carport, the installation of a pool and a bocce court. So there's grading pretty much around the whole site and some other just decorative features and landscaping and some small accessory structures for storage. I think before I go any further, I just want to bring your attention to the late mail that we received tonight. This is a letter that arrived by email this evening just recently. It is from the property owners in their representation at 39 Rancheria Road, which is the home and gate you see at the end of Murray Lane when you come to visit this site. She's in the county, I believe, and not in the city of Larkspur. but it appears that she has several concerns, one being the property owner's right to access on the private road Murray Lane, and the other, I think, compliance with the standards and Sequa. Since it came so late, I really haven't had any time to review this at length, and I have emailed this all to the commission members or board members, so you can take a look when you have a moment. So getting back to the application, this particular project went through multiple reviews with the architects and several revisions, and the historic architect provided review and comment on the project and a evaluation of whether or not the project met the Secretary of the Interior standards, and all of her reports and evaluations were attached to the staff report for your review. In addition, the applicant did also hire themselves a historic architect, very reputable individual, Garavaglia Incorporate, whom the city has also used, full disclosure. And they just did a basics background history of the site and its current standing. I don't believe it evaluated the proposed additions, but it gave them some advice on where additions were appropriate. At the end of all of the reviews, the historic architect did indicate that there, of course, were some very good and valuable approaches taken in this design in meeting the standards, but also indicated that there was concerns because many of the standards weren't completely met. And she boiled it down to 4 key issues. The original front east porch needs to be restored to the configuration and appearance of the historic photos. I think this is something that she finds the standards supports in essentially trying to retain the historic character of the home, but it also trade off for the improvements that are being proposed and potentially approved. The original rear west porch and the original door on the north elevation need to be preserved and not removed. These features are visible from Murray Lane as you stand and look at the house because it's set up sideways to the street. The cottage needs to be preserved as it's an important part of the property's history. And the massing and two-story addition needs to be reduced in order not to overwhelm the historic portions of the building. Based on these concerns and these changes that she believes would better meet the standard, she has not fully embraced the design and indicated that these things should be met in order to meet all of the standards. The board needs to consider all the information attached to the report. We attached quite a bit of information I have not touched on tonight, and that staff report was on the website and available to the public. And consider all the information that's provided to you tonight and determine if, in fact, the project does adequately meet the standards and therefore is exempt from Sequa, or if additional revisions are necessary to comply. I have provided you with 4 options for your action. You can approve it as proposed, subject to that determination that it meets all the standards and therefore is exempt from Sequa. You can recommend approval based on revisions you require as a condition of approval, and we can give those to the Planning Commission for their consideration. You can ask for continuance to review further information or to ask the applicant to make revisions to the plans, or you can recommend denial. Those are your 4 options tonight. And that concludes my report. Does anyone have any questions?
No.
No, there's a great deal of material. So could we refer to pages if anybody wants to mention something in particular?
I have the staff report here because there is so many attachments. So
I see Jared Polsky has his hand up. I'd be interested in hearing him address this.
well, first we need to make sure there aren't any questions of staff, and then we go to the applicant.
Chris, and I do have one question, and that is you mentioned multiple reviews. Can you walk us through the history of that?
Well, the initial review that I attached was from 2019 for a prior property owner. And that report was made available to anyone looking at the property when it was available for sale.
Right.
So the applicants and the
Mhm.
architect did get this report, and then they hired Garavaglia Inc. to assist them, and that report is also attached. And then during the review process for completeness to get this project to a public hearing, each time the plans were revised based on comments provided to the applicant from all the different departments in planning and the historic architect, she then, just re-upped her commentary, just like everybody else does. She reevaluated and provided an update. So you'll see those progressive reports in there.
Yeah.
Mhm. So this has been going on since 2019?
Well, 2019 was totally unrelated to this application.
Mm.
But since it provided such a great background research report that she then based her later evaluations on, I included it.
Okay.
There any other questions?
Has anything been done to the house since the new owners have come in? I mean, there been other permits, or is this?
I have not, to my knowledge or recollection, signed off on any permits for remodeling. I think they're waiting to get through this process.
Mhm.
Okay.
In 2019, Kristen, did the people drop it or were they denied?
They didn't apply. They just asked for the historic evaluation so they could try to figure out if they wanted to invest in additions and alterations.
Got it. And that was provided to the current owners.
Yeah. I provided it to anybody who came in and requested information on what they could do with the site. I'm pretty sure I provided it to Polsky Pearlstein as well.
Mhm. Okay. Right.
All right.
So I guess it's best to start with the applicant and their comments and presentation about this project.
Jared, I've allowed you to talk. You just need to unmute yourself. Do you want the applicant to be made a panelist so you can see him?
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
It'll take just a minute to promote you to panelist, and then you can turn on your camera if you'd like. There you are.
All right. Can you see us all?
Yes.
Yes, hello.
I'm Jared Polsky. This is Amy and Wayne Moo. And I think Wayne wants to make a quick introduction and show you a very brief video. And then I have I'd like to talk about the specifics of the application.
So Jared, we don't share the screen with the applicants. You needed to provide that to me in advance so I can show it on this from my screen.
That's not how it worked before. We've always shared the screen.
No, actually, we stopped doing that quite a while ago.
We did it at the last hearing.
No, I didn't share my screen. I just let you be present. I've been operating the PowerPoints that are presented as a rule. We don't give up control of the meeting to the applicant. I can't do that. I'm not supposed to.
Can't share your screen?
I can share my screen. I'm sharing it now.
So
I don't
you
have
need
your
a video
video.
right now?
Where's your video?
We thought we could share our screen. So we have the video and we have all sorts of images that we wanted to talk about.
Do you want to send it to me by email?
I think it's too big to email.
It's too big an email file. Well, I mean, I can describe what we want to talk about, but it seems really a shame that we can't have a video to support that.
Well, it's a city meeting, Jared. I'm not supposed to turn over control of a city meeting to the applicant. We need to have these things filed with us, and I make them available through this process.
Okay. Well,
I'll still start. My name's Wayne Wu. is my wife. My wife,
Hi,
Amy.
everybody. I'm
Will.
Amy.
We have 3 kids. We have a sixth grader who's 12, and then we have identical twin girls who are 10. They're in 4th grade. They go to St. Hilary School. We currently live in Corte Madera. We moved to Corte Madera in 2012, and we in some ways we stumbled into this property. I guess it was over a year ago, and got to know the Brugers, who were the former owners, who still live there today. For us, we love Larkspur for a long. We've lived on the other side of the freeway, but we find ourselves always in Larkspur because we love downtown Larkspur. We've always admired all the different architecture in the town and dreamed of living on this side of the freeway. And we purchased the house about a year ago. It was pretty daunting. I think we saw the vision in terms of what's been built on 9 Murray Lane by Jared, our architect, in terms of neighbors who live there, and feel like this can be so much greater in terms of celebrating William Murray's history, but also helping a home that it seems very likely will fall down at some point if someone doesn't invest behind it to help bring it back to where it should be. I think one of the things that Jared will go into that I think is an interesting fact as we continue to learn more about the home is in this image that you see on the screen, it's actually if you look at the screens on the left side, that's actually the historic front of the home. We were in our journeys, I actually met one of the Murray descendants to try to find more pictures of this home. And surprisingly, I guess not so surprisingly, all of the pictures are of the historic front of the home that faces Magnolia, where the little hand signal is on the screen. We struggled to find any pictures. We didn't find any pictures of any other side of the home, nor the cottage. Every single image, including weddings. They told me about the wedding, the picture of the people sitting on the roof. It was a wedding of the Murray descendants, again, facing the Magnolia side. The street that this is actually on, which Jared will talk about, it was like a glorified driveway, basically a dirt driveway that people drove up to this front of the house that now faces a fence of our neighbors. But all in all that to say, it's been an interesting process so far. We have a vision for what this could be. It's actually quite intimidating in terms of, as costs have continued to go up, we're actually pretty nervous about actually spending the kind of money that it seems it's going to need to bring this house back to where it needs to be, and also build on it to make this project viable. But we're excited to be here, and we wanted to thank you all for your consideration and look forward to your feedback. And with that, we'll pass it over to Jared.
Well, we had a whole bunch of images to share during the speech. I'm sorry about that. But as you may know, we've done a lot of historic buildings in Larkspur. I had my office here for almost 40 years. We remodeled a house on Hawthorne, the Dolliver House in the Madrone Canyon, a number of commercial buildings, and the house next door at 5 Murray Lane. There's no question that not all old buildings need to be preserved, but there's no question the original Murray house deserves this protection. William Murray was one of the first families the Murray family was one of the first families in Larkspur, and as both historians who analyzed this property noted, it's worth preserving William Murray's legacy. He built a little cabin in the late 1860s, which is the north end of the building, and then he built a 2-story wing in the late 1880s. These 2 old buildings make up the visible east side of the property that you can see now on the screen. The side that faces Magnolia. That's the original front of the house. The east part of the house, both the 1-story loggers cabin, north wing, and the 2-story south wing were clearly built during William Murray's lifetime. And there's little question it's historic. In fact, however, as Wayne says, it's the only existing photographs of the old house are from this side. There are no photographs that we've been able to find or that William Murray's grandson has that shows the old house in any other direction. There's no photographs from the side, from the rear. It's just this one facade. It's unclear to both the historians when the rear of the house, this west wing, was actually built. It could have been built during William Murray's lifetime or not. It's clear from the photo. If you saw the west wing of the house, it's clearly cobbled together. In fact, we had a picture of the attic of that west wing, and there's two gable roofs inside, like two little cottages were jammed together, and they built one roof over top of the two gables. The original house should be protected. It's going to be very expensive, but it's worth preserving. But that said, the rear west wing of the house and the rear cottage, if you went out to the site, you can see the rear cottage is in terrible condition. The west wing is essentially rotting away and about to fall down, and the rear cottage is even worse. In my opinion, it's very difficult to make findings that these elements need protection. They've clearly lost what historians would say their integrity, and over the years, almost nothing has been done to maintain or repair both of those structures. Saving any parts of these buildings is expensive. Amy and Wayne love old buildings and are amazingly up to the task to a limit. And in my opinion, the only way to save the old buildings is to make them useful again. So at the very minimum, the collection of the buildings needs the following. It needs entirely new foundations, entirely new wall framing. Most of the exterior walls are board on board with no studs, new insulation, new roof structures, proper drainage, new electrical service and wiring, new plumbing, upgraded fire protection and suppression. And I might add, these definitely need that. These are a fire danger. New windows and doors, new bathrooms and kitchens, repair of all the existing trim that is to remain, and more and more. And this construction will undoubtedly cost more money than just building new. Maintaining and repairing while essentially rebuilding is an expensive challenge. And frankly, we're lucky that this young family is willing to put up the time and resources to make this happen, but again, up to a limit. And here's where I think local communities should recognize that people willing to make these sorts of investments to protect our collective history should be nurtured and supported. We applied for our historic review on August the 19th, hoping to get some guidance and approval to move forward to the Planning Commission and ultimately to break ground this coming spring. I fear that we've lost the 2022 building season. But we agree to most of the suggestions in the historic reports, but ask for a bit of lenience or flexibility in a few areas. We feel that the east-facing porch, the original porch, should be restored, but need not be enlarged just to replicate a hard-to-see porch from an old photo. In fact, it's very hard to see what that porch really was. This photo actually showed an uncovered porch extension. I think we're in the business of preserving but not recreating lost elements, and this east facade is no longer the entrance to the house. We feel that the tar-papered shed roof leading to the later entry on the west wing should not be prepared. We had photographs showing it's in very poor condition. It's slumped down. It has some tar paper on the roof, and it was clearly not part of the original Murray house. And it makes no sense, in my opinion, makes no sense in a reasonable reuse of the property. If you had a chance to visit the cottage at the rear, you'd probably agree with us that there's not much left to save. There's no foundation, no floor framing, no wall framing. The interior is rotted beyond repair, and it's essentially not visible from Murray Lane. And as we've been saying, Murray Lane is not a public street. It's a privately owned driveway with access easements for the three houses on Murray. It does not go through to Rancheria in Kent Woodlands, and the cottage is barely visible as it now stands. And we might have misinterpreted the comments in Ms. Salon's September 24th report that suggested the facade of the cottage might just be attached to the side of the house by the kitchen, sort of as a visual reminder of the old cottage. And frankly, that actually made a bit of sense to us. The cottage is in such poor condition and built in such a shoddy manner that it would be impossible to move it. It's true that you could rebuild a new structure and paste some of the rotting siding on the new framing, but to force this young couple to spend hundreds of thousands of more dollars to construct a tiny cottage with some rotting siding seems overly onerous to us. And we do not agree that the new wing of the house dominates the view of the older portion of the house. Remember, it's not a public street, but we did an alternate floor plan, sort of in the spirit of Ms. Holan's suggestion. And we were going to show you the alternate roof plan tonight. It's not quite as dramatic or as tall a front entry, but it works for Amy and Wayne. And late last week, Kristen had asked us to erect story poles. We couldn't get a contractor out on such a moment's notice, but hopefully when you see this reduced size entry structure, it probably won't require story poles for your review. But clearly, when we go to the planning commission, we'll have story poles for everything, and we have a story pole plan as part of the application. Ms. Holan was also critical of a flat roofed extension from the new entrance to the stairs. You can see it in this image here. We wanted some cover outside the front door, but both historians wanted us to save the west gable facade of the west wing. And there's no way you could save that facade and have anything other than a flat roof extension over the door. We frankly think this cobbled together west wing, I don't know if you have any photographs, if you've seen it, the west elevation of the west wing is all cobbled together with, you can see pieces of siding that's been attached. Well, I don't think it's in any of those pictures. It's sort of the back. No, it's not that one.
Sort of the right side.
No. It's sort of that by the way is the porch that we don't is clearly not historic, and is it just doesn't make sense anymore. But the west gable end, which I'm talking about, is the right end now, not that way. It's if you've been there, it's got a diamond shaped window, and you can see old siding with different sheets of different spaces between the siding. Anyways, I understand that most of you have had the opportunity to visit the site. I hope you have, and I'm sure you can see that it's in terrible condition. It needs repair. It needs protection, and Amy and Wayne are up to this task. But we really need you to make it a little bit less onerous to help them on their way to make a successful remodel. Amy and Wayne have the support of many of their neighbors, and I think some of them are here tonight who want to speak in support of the project. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Before that, while Jared was sharing some thoughts, I found a link to the video that I emailed you, Kristen. I was wondering if you could play it. There I am. And there's the Vimeo link. You're hoping it plays. Wonder if you need to hit the download
Do I
button
have to join Vimeo?
on the right side, that little arrow down sign. I just choose the smallest one, the bottom one.
Open file.
Hi, I'm Wayne Wu.
Can you
And I'm
see
Amy
this?
Wu.
No.
No, we can't
It's
see
on the
anything.
wrong screen.
20
It's
years
moved
ago,
to
and we've
the,
been married.
Almost 15 years.
wait,
Oh my
I'm gonna
goodness.
stop
We
it.
have 3 kids. Owen is almost 12, who are almost 10.
It has unfortunately decided to occupy the same screen as the computer, and it won't go to the other screen. I need to share a different screen in order to show this view, but it's taking my whole screen and there we go. Which screen is it?
If we close our videos of us, would that,
Can you see? Can you see it now? Can you?
Yes, if you hit play, it'll go.
Okay.
The low middle, the bottom middle.
The bottom middle, right?
Bottom middle.
Keep going.
I've
to
got
the
a
right.
lot of controls that are popping up all together here. Sorry, my
You were close.
Zoom
Down.
screen is
Down.
covering it. There.
You're almost there. Just move a little to the right.
There.
Boom.
There.
Just click.
There it is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hi, I'm Wayne Wu,
And I'm Amy Wu.
and we met at Santa Clara University over 20 years ago,
Yeah.
and we've been married.
Almost 15 years.
Oh my goodness.
We have 3 kids. Owen is almost 12, and we have identical twin girls, Laurel and Scarlett, who are almost 10. And we have been Marin residents for, gosh, over a decade now. And we are right now living in Corte Madera, California, and we're super excited to move over to Larkspur. So our kids are getting bigger. We've realized during COVID that our girls, right now they share a room, and their personalities are developing and they need their own space. And it was time for our family to move on to our next step. And Larkspur is a city that we loved and have dreamed about for a long time. We love downtown Larkspur. We love riding our bikes over here and going for walks. We love the weather. And so we're just really excited to be here and really looking forward to making this space our family's next home.
From what we've come to learn, the historic nature of this property as a whole is all about William Murray's life. What hasn't been able to be defined clearly is which portions of this home were built pre and post his lifetime. In every image that we've ever been able to find, including the Larkspur Heritage book, every picture is of this side of the house. However, we're willing to continue to preserve other parts of this home, but hopefully we have a reasonable approach towards the rest of this house. And we have our 100% commitment on preserving this and investing the dollars needed to restore this front of this house to the state that we believe this would preserve the historic nature of William Murray's legacy.
Hi, I'm Jared Polsky. I'm Wayne and Amy's architect. I was also the architect for the 2 neighbors at 1 and 5 Murray Lane.
It's already been done on this street. 2 out of the 3 homes have been invested behind. The only one that hasn't, in fact, is one of the most historic homes in Larkspur. And we're willing to do it, but the project needs to be viable. You know, and as an example, our neighbor's home is one that, frankly, is a beautiful home that's already been done. The home used to actually sit behind this particular home, was moved to the front, and is made into a beautiful historic home preserving Larkspur's heritage.
Hi, we're Judy and Jeff Kirschbaum, and this is our 110-year-old house that we had the honor of restoring several years ago.
We live next door to the house number 9, which is even an older house than ours, but it's all been on historically on this property throughout the history of Larkspur. Several years ago, we had the honor to restore this house and bring it up to what it really should be. And it was a daunting task, very nerve-wracking, and any help we had from the city was really much appreciated.
The cost to build anywhere in the United States, especially in the Bay Area, has ramped up tremendously. Cost of lumber, cost of labor to build here. This has to be a viable project. It's going to cost millions to do this, and we're willing to do this to help preserve William Murray's legacy and the history of Larkspur. This is actually the side of the house. As I mentioned, behind us, just to orient you, this is the private easement behind us. That's a private road. As a practical matter, they're currently using this as the front of the house, but this is not the historic front of the house. You can see behind me that this basically has been a house that's slapped together over time. You can see that the roof line is completely uneven because someone smushed 2 structures together at one point. It doesn't match anything. It was clearly added, you know, in modern times. Lastly, the whole foundation is completely dilapidated. It's utilizing technology. I don't even know if this was 1800s technology. Whatever this was built upon, this house could fall at any time. You know, it's going to be a daunting task, as the Kirschbaums have mentioned in their experience in building their home. One of the areas that we frankly don't understand is it doesn't make sense to allocate dollars to the cottage. No one sees it. I can't even find it pictured anywhere. The place to invest the dollars is the front of this home and making the rest of this, the foundation, the structure, making it a structurally sound building.
And I just want to point out a few things about the cottage. This is the cottage that sits behind the house, and it is in terrible shape. Not only is it sitting in the dirt, there's no studs. The walls are 1 inch thick and just siding. So it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to realistically save this structure. It's essentially not visible from off-site. That's a private easement, and even from the easement, you can barely see it, and certainly from no public way. So it's not like we're preserving something that people walk by and see every day. It's way in the back end of the property and almost invisible. The west gable end of the old house, and we've been instructed to try to save at least half of this, and our drawings are showing that we're preserving it, but frankly we're sort of perplexed when you see the shape that it's in. It's clearly been cobbled together over the years and was not really an original historic structure, but we're doing our best to save some portion of this gable end.
We're surrounded by homes of the size that we're proposing to build here, including what's been built on this street. To be clear, we're not asking for any variance on this property. We're not even close to the FAR limit.
I'm Leah Salter. My husband, Chad Salter, and I and our 2 children live in this house, 1 Murray Lane. We live 2 doors down from 9 Murray Lane. It's become a really beautiful street, and we'd be so happy if the Woos were able to fix up 9 Murray Lane. It's a beautiful old historical home that needs some love, and it would just complete this street.
Like everyone else in Larkspur, we want these houses to be saved and for future generations to see them.
Hi, I'm Amy Bruger.
And I'm Bill Bruger.
And we bought the Murray house in 2012. What we loved about the place at the time was, it's just such a charming old farmhouse. Construction just got crazy expensive.
To renovate it, though, what we've learned is, like Amy said, it's not only expensive, but it takes somebody with passion for the project, somebody who's committed to doing it the right way. For this project to restore this house so that it can last for another 150 years in a viable project that will be a win for everyone in the city. I really hope that the city works together with Wayne to make it happen.
And we hope that you'll support our new neighbors and let them make this house better, because it can be better.
And when we first even stepped foot on this property, we knew it was it. It had some of the character that we've seen across Larkspur, the heritage, the history of the town, but it needs work. But we knew this was it, and we're really excited to embark in this journey.
Thank you for allowing us to show the video.
Thank you, Kristen, for getting it up there.
Oh, yeah, no problem. All right. Back to the drawings. Let me get back to, I have to re-show the participants. There we go. Okay. Are the applicants done with their presentation then?
Yeah, unless there's questions, we're done, and we'd love to hear from the neighbors.
Are there any questions?
No.
I have a question. I just have a quick question about, I think, Mr. Polsky, I heard you say in the beginning that you've revised the addition, and has that been since the last historic architects report that we have dated February 3rd? Or do we have the most up-to-date revisions, is what I'm asking, from when Kristen sent us the packet?
You do not have the new scheme. We wanted to show it tonight. We just worked it out in a few days ago. Is or sort of reduced entry side of the new part of the building. So it does essentially what Ms. Holan is asking is sort of reducing the front 10, 15 feet of that addition to be sort of a separate structure, pushing the stair into the main body of the house.
So I have a question. You said that there was a reduced height. Do you have numbers for that?
It's about 2'6" lower than the main roof. I mean, the main roof stays the main roof, but the front portion of the house would be about between 2 and 2.5 feet lower.
So I'm still a little confused. I'm sorry. So if I look at the current height is 28 feet, correct?
Right.
And then you say that, and I think it drops down a little bit on the south side. Like it looks like it drops down about 2 feet. So you're reducing the 28-foot height?
No, the main spine of the ridge of the new addition is roughly 28 feet above grade, depending on where you're measuring from, because the ground goes up towards the garage. But if you measure it at the highest point, it's about 28 feet. But what Ms. Holan wanted was the front, when I say front, the northerly portion of the addition to be separated from the main body of the house. And we had drawings to show how we would take the stair that is now shown going towards the garage. We push that into the main body of the house and lower the front portion of the house so that it's about 2.5 feet lower than the main body of the house. Does that make sense?
So before the revision, it was higher than the main body of the house, and now it's going to be.
No, it was the same. Now
it was the same. Okay, yeah, because
we just sent that drawing to Kristen. So if she can open her email, we emailed you that drawing.
So the overall elevation of the ridge, as you said, it's still 125.83, right? Or 28 feet.
The highest part.
The highest part of the ridge is still 28 feet, but the front portion of the by front, I mean the northerly portion by the new entrance is lower. And Kristen, did you get the drawings?
Do you see that? This is the floor plan.
No, we need the 3D.
We don't see anything now.
Oh, I have to change back to sharing another screen.
Okay.
Okay.
You send the 3D? Good.
Do you see that?
No.
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 Not yet. Oh, there. Okay. Oh, that's
That's a revised floor plan. And you can see we push the stair into the body of the house. And then we have a 3D projection to show you how it essentially steps down like Jerry Holan suggested.
Which one do you have a cover sheet? New first, this one here?
Here.
Yeah, try that one. You can see, did you send the 3D, Tyler? Yeah. You can see that there's a lower front, just even in this elevation, you can see the entrance is lower, but we have a 3-dimensional view, which would be even more instructive.
What's the name?
This one here?
Yeah.
Jared, I was a little confused. I was under the impression she was recommending the roof ridge be lowered, not just.
It is. She recommended that you would lower the entry portion of the house, just like this. That was her sketch. I mean, it's almost her. She had it slightly shifted to the left, but it's the same idea.
I have that attached here. We'll look it up and see what it says.
You can see that her entry roof is shifted farther left, and the reason we didn't do that, we lowered it and shifted it as she suggested, but we want to center the entrance on the center line of the house, and she hadn't figured out how to do the stair because that wasn't her job to do that. So we had to push the stair back into the body of the house, and but it's essentially what she was suggesting. She was suggesting that.
But that's not what she suggested. She said it's recommended to lower the ridge line.
Yes, the ridge line of that portion of you can see her in her sketch.
It's on page 3 of 4 on the November 15th, 2021 It's the,
And she has elevations from the side and from the front. She's not suggesting lowering the entire structure. She's suggesting lowering the front portion so that somebody might be able to see over the front portion of the house to the back.
Ah, I see. Okay.
it's in the November 15th report.
I see that where she kind of X'd out.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like in a red
The
line.
little red line.
Little red line is
So-
the middle image.
Reducing the
She's
mass.
saying
Okay.
make the roof over the entrance separated from the main part of the house and lower it. And that's what we did.
Hillary, what page are you on to find that?
Ah, okay, it's
November
attachment 8. Attachment 8, it's the November 15th correspondence from Jerry to Kristen.
Okay.
And it's page 3, it's a drawing, it's kind of faint, but you can see it.
There.
Right there, boom.
Right there. See the red line?
Yep.
I mean, so
Go down,
she's
down,
saying-
down a little further.
Down the other way. But you're past it. It's the
Yeah.
lower. Keep going down.
It says it would do much to make the perception of the addition.
Right. You see, wait, stop. You can see the red line she's saying, make the entry portion of the roof lower, separated and lower than the main body. And that's what we've done, but we shifted it over to the right a bit. So it'll be centered in the
So you
center.
centered it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
So essentially you moved it further west.
exactly. We moved it further west, but it's the same idea. We made a narrower gable so it won't be as high.
Okay.
And as much as we all like the more dramatic stairwell and the taller window at the front, Amy and Wayne are happy with that change.
Okay. Do we have, I almost feel like it's time to open it up to public comment and questions. Kristen, is that where we are on the agenda?
If you are satisfied that you've gotten a full understanding of the applicant's presentation.
Or do you think we can ask questions later, or?
You can certainly do so if you wish.
Well, Kristen, has Jerry Holland seen this newest?
No, he just indicated that they have finished this out in the last few days.
Okay, and she hasn't had a chance to
No,
look.
this is a complete surprise to me.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and other than that particular change, were there any other changes from her recommendation that, from the February 3rd letter? Like, that was sort of what I was looking at mostly, to be honest, was her final recommendations.
I think it's the next one up. There's Garabaglia. February 3rd?
Yeah, the February 3rd. She has several.
I have so many here.
I know. I just,
We don't have a February 3rd.
this one's been through.
Yeah, have the 4 points again.
It's the 4 points.
Oh, yeah, it kind of repeats it, right?
It does, yeah. So were there any other revisions regarding the rest of her recommendations that she had on February 3rd?
Nobody ever gave us said February 3rd Jerry Holland letter. Just
It's attached to the staff report.
Oh, okay.
It came in when I was writing it.
Well, we did not change any of the design except for offering this particular entry roof change to meet up with her concerns. The other parts of the design that she's saying preserve the west porch, the cottage. That's what we're asking for, a little bit of flexibility, because it's teetering on the edge of, is it doable?
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Would it be possible to get some of those historic photos that you showed in that video? I noticed there was a great shot of the west porch, the original construction and layout.
West porch.
Yeah, in the video.
You mean the east?
He showed some black and white photos that included, no, I'm sorry, not the west porch, the east porch.
Well, we could send you those photos.
Can you try to find them?
Well, do you need them right now? We can certainly.
No,
send them.
no, just in the future.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're happy to send you all. We have many pictures of that historic east porch. Because that's what it seems like that's the only thing that's ever pictured.
That'd be great. We could add them to the collection.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to
Yeah,
do
and the plans were to restore that porch as Jerry
Yeah.
recommends, right?
Well,
the-
no, we plan to restore the porch as it is now, not based on what she saw, what you can see in an old photograph.
Okay.
That seems a little more than you'd want to do in a, preserving a historic home. We're open to doing that, but it seems that one step too far to our.
Wait a minute, but that's, I mean, if that's the front of the house, or that's historic front of the house.
Right, we want to preserve what's the historic front of the house as it is now.
There now.
It's not there now. And there's one hard to read photograph that shows that there was not a covered porch, but an uncovered porch that extended to the east. And our question is, do we have to rebuild what might have been there as shown in the photograph, or just preserve what's there now?
So we found there's some irony in the report where it's restore the east original back to what's in an old photograph, but then we want us to keep the tar roof west porch on the other side as is. It's just kind of ironic to us that you can't see in any photographs that was as so it's just kind of one don't keep it the way it is, reconstruct it back to a photo, and then the other side keep something that seems to be built later.
Okay, but to reconstruct the east porch, would that mean dismantling or taking something out that's there now? Or is it not?
Absolutely, yes, it's rotting, absolutely.
Right, I see what you mean.
It has to be rebuilt no matter what we do.
Right.
Am I correct that it would be a deeper porch basically than what's currently there?
It would be not the roof, because the old photograph shows the roof out the same as it is now, but the porch itself would be up.
The porch
Remember,
extend.
that was the entrance to the house. It's no longer the entrance. But yes, the porch itself would be an uncovered porch if you follow the photograph.
One of the questions that sometimes comes up with historic properties is, are some of the so-called improvements during the years historic themselves?
Right.
It's hard to know how far back you need to go or want to go.
Right.
We had discussions with Mr. Garavaglia, and his concerns are what needs to be preserved is what was built during William Murray's lifetime. And there's really no clear evidence of what was, we know what was built during William Murray's lifetime. That's the front building, but there's no evidence to suggest that anything else was built during his lifetime. It might have been, but there's no clear evidence of that.
Because nobody chose to photograph anything else other than that.
Well, there's other ways to document buildings besides photographs, though. I mean, so just because William Murray's descendants don't have a photograph of that porch doesn't mean that it's not significant.
And Mr. Garavaglia did a lot of research trying to find, other kinds of written records of what might have been built, what might have been permitted, and he was unable to find anything other than anything that would lend any certainty to the rear portion of the house, what we're now calling the west wing.
I just want to bring your attention to the tax assessor records that we did find in the California Historic Room. This was part of the early report Jerry prepared in 2019. And you can see the drawings where they're showing you the building footprint. It includes the west wing and the porch. It's from a 1928 tax assessment record depicting 9 Murray Lane with construction date 1866 and addition date 1882.
Okay.
But I think that Mr. Garavaglia,
I did not research this and find this record, I have to say. I'm just presenting it that this is some of the information she's basing a lot of her recommendations on, that she believes these are older, fairly original. They've become part of the historic fabric of the structure. Having said that, it's understandable that if it's in really poor condition, that some ability to replace materials in kind should be permitted.
my reading of that was that the original house had been built in the 1860s and 1880s, and in 1928 or whatever, I'm sorry, whenever this was written, this was the house didn't specifically say that all Porsches were built in that era.
There's a variety of little in notations, but we do know everything was there in 1928. That much we can say.
I think William Murray died in 03. I think it was 1903.
09.
09.
So, but even if these additions, okay, setting aside the argument of whether or not they were done during William Murray's lifetime, these additions we know are documented from 1928. So that puts them squarely as historic structures.
Well, I think what made it historic was William Murray, not so much that they're old.
Well, this is the other part of the conversation here is there's more to designating a house a historic structure, as you know, than just the person who lived there. This house, there's several criteria that this house meets that qualifies it to be a historic structure. William Murray is granted a significant part of that, but there are other criteria that this house meets. You can't disassociate, his date of death from the historic value of this house.
Yes.
Well, I mean, one of the components of being historic is integrity, and it seems that portions of this house have long lost their integrity.
Well, can you define what you mean by integrity? In this sentence, in this conversation? I'm just
Well,
curious.
I think some portions of the house are so rotten and in such poor shape that it's hard to imagine saving them. I guess that's what I mean by integrity. Like the cottage.
Is it time to open up? Does anyone else have any questions? Sonia, do you have a question as vice chair?
Well, actually, it looks like Kristen was going back to it. The next thing I would want to do is to look at the evaluation that Jerry did.
This is the
as you know-
evaluation from Dan Peterson in 2006.
right.
Okay, well, yeah, the
2003.
Okay, yeah, so I am one of the newer people on this board, but it's something that I have already learned is that it's not necessarily the condition of the structure that determines its value in this, its historic value. So I'm going to look at that page that Jerry's got up, that Kristen's got up. Because this home also had adjusted scores, quite significant adjusted scores over different evaluations, I think. So trying to refresh memory in that too.
I was looking for the first evaluation. I guess it follows.
Kristen, are you talking about the evaluation when it was rated a 35?
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
After that.
and that was done, what is the date on that? I don't see a date on that.
Yeah, I didn't see a date.
1979?
That's the 1979. So there were two evaluations done, the original 1978, and then reevaluated in 2003.
And there's quite a difference as we're looking at it.
There's quite a difference. And I see there is a category for the loss of architectural integrity. I mean, it doesn't, they do take that into account that they did in 2003, which is a long time ago now.
What would you all like to see now? Would you like me to go back to the plans, the perspectives?
The only thing, I think in one of the reports, it was either Ms. Hawan or Mr. Garavaglia that mentioned that the historic nature was tied to William Murray's actual lifetime and not afterwards. I don't have it in front of me, but I believe one of the reports mentioned that specifically.
Yeah, that was Garavaglia's report.
Okay, he was very clear that, in his opinion, what made it historic was William Murray. Anything built after Mr. Murray's lifetime would maybe not be deemed historic. That's what he said.
Yes, I see he mentions that several times in his report.
Murray's an important person. He was one of the first people in Larkspur.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, but his descendants continue to live in the house. I think his daughters lived there after his death. And you could also say that historic significance doesn't end with a person's lifetime. Otherwise, we wouldn't save any buildings that are older than we are. So I don't see that as a limiting factor, his death, in terms of its significance.
And I raised the same thing to Mr. Garavaglia and what he described, and I brought up the same point you made. And his point is like, oftentimes in those cases, there's some type of architectural note that makes the historic nature not end tied to a person's life. He said in this case, there's nothing particularly notable about the architecture itself, that this structure is historic in nature because of William Murray in this particular case. And not in all cases of historic buildings, but in this case, it's more tied to him being a historic figure than any notable historical physical dimension of this property.
Well, I think you have to think about history of Larkspur as being, yes, there's individuals, right? Like Mr. Murray and several other of our sort of founding people. But also think about what the house was used for. I mean, there were several outlying cottages, they had borders, if you read the Larkspur Past and Present and you talk to people who are familiar with the history, it's the structure itself, but it's also the lifestyle and the activity around that structure.
Yeah, I'd like to add that in general, our architectural quality has never been outstanding and rarely known for that. But we want to preserve the history that tells the story of Larkspur. And a building such as this tells the story of early Larkspur.
Yeah, it's material culture. It's a document of lived life in Larkspur.
Right, right. Carol, how about you? Do you have any thoughts or questions?
No, they've all been addressed. I mean, no, I have nothing that has not been addressed. No.
Okay.
I agree, though, that it's not the date of when someone passes. It has to do with the history in a town. And I think that's significant in this case. And I think we struggled with that recently as well. I mean, we're talking about continuing to preserve a history of the town for people.
And I agree. I think there's a lot of meaningful history after the era of the original builders that does tell the story, a very interesting story. And we want to be sure that we keep that intact.
So I think before you come to any conclusions on anything, we should hear from everyone first.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Agree.
And anyone else on the board have any questions before we move into the public comment?
Okay, I'm gonna reassign Jared back to attendee, but he can still speak if he raises his hand. I'll put him.
Thank you for the time.
I do have, Jared, excuse me, I do have one question. I think earlier you mentioned having misinterpreted Jerry Holland's comments, and I wonder if you can expand on that.
Yeah. which was the 24th, September 24th, she said, and this was maybe a mistake, but an honest mistake, let's put it this way. I'm just looking at it. It's about the cottage.
Page 11.
There it is.
Page 8 of 9.
Page 8 of 9.
On September 24th.
September 24th. The cottage's north elevation should be retained, restored, and repurposed. It could be incorporated into the storage structure for the carport, the kitchen area of the home, or a supplemental pool, bocce, or garden structure. So we thought incorporate into the kitchen area of the home. So that's why our drawings show the facade of the cottage essentially attached to the kitchen area of the home, thinking that's sort of a clever way to remind people of the old facade. Maybe that's not what she meant, but that's how we interpreted that line. It's on page 8 of 9, September 24th.
Yeah.
9.
I see your comment. I'm sorry, how did you incorporate the cottage's north elevation into the kitchen? Maybe I missed that.
You put it on the siding, on the kitchen side of that elevation.
Is it the south?
It's the west elevation, looking from the carport.
Okay, so let me look at the west. So
It's west.
There it is.
Where's
the little
So the door and the windows, the door, that's a blind door. That's the facade of the cottage.
Got
There's
it.
really not much to the cottage other than the door and the window.
So that would be just on top of
Yeah.
structure of the remodel. It would
It
just
would be like a piece of art reminding people that there used to be a cottage.
Oh, interesting. So this is what this door in the center is, and the two.
We honestly thought that's what she wanted to the kitchen area of the home could be incorporated into the kitchen area of the home. Maybe that's not what she meant, but that's how we understood it.
Is that the same scale as the cottage?
Yeah, that's the cottage door. I mean, that's right.
Interesting. Wow, I hadn't seen that.
And we thought, there's not going to be much to save of the cottage. It can't be moved. So she wants only to save the north facade. Well, you could do that. You could take those pieces off and place them onto the north facade of the west facade of the.
Oh, what is an interesting.
It is an interesting adjunct to the planning.
The west elevation, I believe, faces the neighbor at 39 Rancheria, so it's not a very visible elevation. Just keep that in mind. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, neither is the cottage.
That sort of defeats your argument there. Now, if you put it on the north, maybe that would, because the facade of the cottage is also facing north.
I don't see where we put it on the north.
Well, they could also just put it on the front of their pool house perhaps or something, which, if they're only using pieces of it, they can sort of recreate
We
it.
don't have a pool house.
We don't have a pool house.
It's a
Pool equipment.
Yeah.
Oh,
Ah.
I guess we could place some of that facade on that side. We could.
I like how you did that. That was, yeah, it wasn't clear from the plan what that was, but since you mentioned it now.
I guess it comes under the term repurposed.
Yes. I'm not sure.
Okay. So can we open it up to public comment now at this point?
Yes, hang
Kristen?
on. Give me just a minute. Okay, we're going to start with Amara Morrison. You're allowed to talk. You just need to unmute yourself.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Good evening, Chair Culhane and members of the board. My name is Amara Morrison, and I'm an attorney with the law firm of Wendell Rosen. We represent Laura Dettles, who resides at 39 Rancheria Road. And this property is adjacent to the property that is the subject of the application before you tonight. And thank you very much for confirming that the board did receive our correspondence this afternoon. And I do apologize about the lateness of the correspondence. I typically like to get it in earlier for your review and consideration. We are appearing tonight to voice our concerns over the impacts to the historic resources on the property at 9 Murray Lane. And I really do appreciate that the board is having a very thorough discussion and good exchange with the applicant and their architect. And we acknowledge that it is the WU's intention to restore the structure. However, fundamentally, it is inappropriate for the city to rely upon a Sequa exemption in connection with this project, because while the exemption would allow a project such as this to proceed without the benefit of environmental review, the exemption is really only appropriate if the construction and the alteration of the historic resource is undertaken in conformance with the Secretary of Interior standards. And it is quite clear from the staff report that the alterations to the primary residence and the demolition of the cottage do not meet the Secretary's standards. There are numerous references in Ms. Holan's analyses of the project, and those are contained in your staff report, that the project, quote, only partially addresses findings which are required to be made in connection with the Larkspur Municipal Code, and that the project, quote, does not appear to be in keeping with the direction of the Secretary of Interior's standards for rehabilitation. So in short, the staff report does contain substantial evidence that the project would result in a substantial adverse change in the significance of an historic resource. And that language is important because that's language that comes directly from the Sequa guidelines, which help us interpret the requirements under the California Environmental Quality Act. That these historic structures have been altered over the course of time is really not relevant to the determination of whether the present proposed alterations would result in a substantial adverse change in the significance of this historic resource. And to the points raised by Mr. Polsky that suggested that such suggested modifications to the project would be too costly is frankly not a consideration under Sequa. In addition, the visibility of the cottage is also not a factor in determining whether the modifications of the structure comply with the Secretary of Interior's standards. So we would urge the board to continue this matter until the appropriate level of environmental review can be undertaken, or alternatively direct the WU's and their architect to undertake further modifications to the project so that they can meet the Secretary of Interior standards in order to lawfully comply with the Sequa exemption. The discussion regarding integrity and the historic importance of the structure, separate and apart from who constructed the structure, can all be more thoroughly evaluated through proper environmental review. And one other point that which we understand is not within the board's purview tonight, and that is that the boards do not have a recorded easement to access Murray Lane, which is private property owned by our client. And thank you so much for your time and consideration this evening. It's been a very thoughtful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Kristen, would this be a time where you could comment on this access question? That was just.
I think we need to get through all the people who.
Okay.
To.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I've allowed you to talk, Chad and Leah Salter. You have your hand up. You need to unmute.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Hi, Heritage Board, thank you very much, and thank you for your service to the city of Larkspur. Kristen, thank you as well. Always great to see you. I'm Chad Salter on behalf of Chad and Leah Salter and Jeff and Judy Kirschbaum. We are the owners of 5 Murray Lane and 1 Murray Lane. We cannot support this project enough. The Woos are fantastic. They have showed us all of their plans. It's a beautiful preservation of an historical house. They have done an incredible job. We are really happy that somebody is going to improve this house. When it rains, the kitchen floods in this home. I've been inside this house. It's really important that it gets fixed and done right. And the Woos and Jared Polsky seem to have provided everybody with a great solution. We're so excited that this is getting done, and can't say enough about what a great family they are. And we fully support their project. We're going to be living next door to them, and we really hope that there are some realistic, let's say, you know, they're in keeping with the historical value. We also have to be realistic, and this home needs some major improvement. And I believe what they're doing is quite beautiful while keeping the value of the history. So I can't thank you enough for your time. And we really hope that you support this project.
Okay, Tim Beal, I believe.
Yes, that's correct. Hi, my name is Tim Beal. Yeah, I've been a 10-year resident of Larkspur. I'm in 99 2 Lane in Hillview. I have known the Woos for 7 years now, and I'm very thankful that they're willing to beautify and improve this property. They will stay part of the community, a value part of this community. Listening to what I've heard today makes me a little bit more how happy I am that they are willing to put in the time and effort to preserve the history. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a good old IT guy. I don't know all the legal statements that they do, but I really believe that what they're trying to do will preserve the history and be allowed I don't want the legal statements and all that kind of stuff that the previous person has mentioned to get in the way of preserving this historical site at all. Because as I would like to echo Chad's sentiments that if we don't do anything, it will go into disrepair and things will go. So I fully support this application for Wayne, the Wu family, and hope that the board will do the same as well. Thank you very much for your time and all the work you do for our city.
Thank you.
I'm going to lower his hand. FC. Oh, that's Fran.
That's Fran.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. I'll try to be brief, give you some comments. I think I would want to encourage certainly to do a thorough research of the history. I was once Larkspur resident on the board briefly, but also I've continued as with the Ross Historical Society for the last several years. And I like to think of the fact that I often do the history before the Ross family sold to the young Kings and Murrays. But it's become a part of Larkspur, but it's much broader than that. And I want to make sure we have the perspective of the importance to the county as well. One thing I would suggest, I really was looking at some of these research that's done. I'm a little concerned at the lack of sources consulted. Maybe it's just not noted. But one thing I would suggest, we have a first-person video of Estelle Murray Peterson. And so in addition to 2 Murrays with street names, Estelle is her street right next to this. it's well worth listening to, and it's posted on the Heritage Board website. And you might glean some information from that if you didn't already go to that. I would also suggest the Marin History Museum. They have very good collections, things from aerial photos to other things. I don't know that you researched it, but that would be well worth doing. Also, local experts, I think of the Kentfield Greenbrae Historical with Dewey Livingston and others. It is good that we have people like noted here, and consulted the research of people like Richard Cunningham, who are true legends in telling the history of this town. And of course, Helen Heitkamp. Also, you can learn about her first person on that site. I guess I'm kind of promoting that because I actually posted those a few years ago and hope people make use of it. I think it is important that I often am a little more preservation oriented than Jerry Holland, but I respect what she comes down with, even if it's not always where I would agree. And I would take very seriously her thoughtful comments and work as well. So I would appreciate, I do appreciate the chance to talk about this. And I would really encourage a bit more research to make sure, and also that if you're getting things just a few days ago, I think you need to have these things well ahead of time for everyone to properly consider, but then consider it. So thank you.
Thank you. Kristen, you're muted.
Sorry, the janitor came in. I have allowed 415, it's a phone number, 592-41402 to speak.
James Holmes, Larkspur. With regard to the cottage, while I'm sympathetic to some of the statements that were made, I do see 3 points that argue strongly for trying to retain it to the extent possible. Number one, it relates specifically to a particular period of the Murray ownership, specifically the Murray Farm Vacation Resort era. Second, it's the last reminder of that period, given that the other remaining cottage was demolished, and I believe that in historic criteria, there's a special relevance given to a last remnant. And third, while it might not actually be part within the scope of the board's jurisdiction, I think we should be very hesitant to eliminate any second units of any sort, given the tremendous pressure we're under to create affordable housing. And while we can't force people to rent units, it certainly furthers the state policy if we can try to maintain them. With regard to the main house, while I haven't seen the plans, if the new addition maintains the existing structure to the maximum extent possible, and I guess that's at issue here, but to the extent it does, I think an argument can be made that even a large addition is consistent with the particular evolution of this house. It started with a very rustic cottage, and then Murray kept that cabin and added a much larger and newer structure in the then current Carpenter Gothic style. And then this latest proposal sort of continues that process of keeping the older structure as much as possible intact and then adding onto it. So if the addition is attractive and reasonably harmonious, then I think it can be justified as a continuation of the way that this particular structure has evolved. And we might end up with an interesting three-stage structure. I don't know if that's a particularly spectacular argument. It's at least a coherent one. I guess my concern in response would be the impact of a large structure on the historic status of the structure. It seems like every time someone wants to demolish a structure, they argue that its value has been compromised by additions. I don't really buy that argument, but we should be careful that we are not by being flexible to add an addition, which I think we ought to do, that we aren't somehow setting ourselves up later for an argument that that addition has compromised the original structure that has been maintained. But if that is not and I don't know if Jerry Holen addressed that issue. I'm not sure she did. But if the historical status of the existing structure would not be compromised by adding a larger addition, then, as I say, I think that might be consistent with the overall evolution of the house over time. Thank you.
Interesting.
And now Jonathan Weinberg, you're allowed to talk.
Hi, my name is John Weinberg. I've been a Larkspur resident for 12 years, living over in the Chevy Chase neighborhood. One of the things that I love about Larkspur is that the history of the town is so rich, but it's ever changing, and it's constantly being rewritten by the people that live here, whether it's the stores downtown or whether it's the homes. And I do actually believe that when someone who's already invested in our community wants to further invest in it, it warrants more favorable consideration. I can personally attest that the Woos, while they've lived in Corte Madera, they have contributed to the Larkspur community over the last 10 years since I've known them, and I've known them for 10 years. Wayne has coached local kids in multiple sports, including Twin Cities Little League. Amy has volunteered in those leagues as well. They are a great family. It does strike me that their plans, having seen them tonight, they've taken seriously the need to preserve the historic nature of the home while improving it for their family's needs. They did not design a modernist sculpture that wouldn't fit in Larkspur. And it would be something that, you know, from the look of it, I would be proud to have in my town. They're a wonderful family, and I'm personally excited that we've stolen them from Corte Madera for our town, and hope that they have hopefully you can look favorably upon this so they can enjoy it for years to come. Thank you for listening.
Dick Cunningham, you're allowed to talk. You need to unmute yourself.
How's that?
Much better.
All right. Good evening, all. Richard Cunningham, my wife Sue and I have lived in Larkspur since '73. And yes, I am the co-author of the Larkspur Past and Present book. I enjoyed Fran Capoletti's shout out. A lot of people have done research on this. I simply wanted to give it a slightly different coloration. And that is whether you regard this as an 1866 house or an 1880 two-story addition, there's only 3 houses in Larkspur that share any sort of a similar history. 2 houses, the Murray House and the King House, the King Costello House, are essentially bookends to the town. Murray on the very north and King Costello right across the street from City Hall. That was Patrick King. He was the co-owner with Murray of the land that eventually became all of Larkspur. The 3rd house of similar vintage is the Brown House, beautiful old building in Baltimore Canyon on Madrone, number 47 Madrone, 2 doors up from the Dolliver Park. You all know it, you've all seen it. Grand white house set back behind a lawn. Those 3 houses were the original landowners and residents of Larkspur. Murray on the north around 1866, King on the south at the same time, and Brown, whose family came here in 1850, Richard and Helen Brown. He worked on the original sawmill. So there's only 3 houses that are remotely of this kind of a deep history and connection. This one, of the 3, is the most visible. Apparently, the least changed. Of course, there have been additions and subtractions. But it's quite remarkable that you can wander up Murray Lane now and see it, as Mr. Gravalia essentially said, if old Mr. Murray were to come back from the bed dead and look up there, you'd know that was his house. It's very recognizable. That's what we're all here worrying about. Does that quite remarkable structure, is that quite remarkable structure going to continue to be available to us? There's only two others like it in Larkspur. So whatever we do here, and I'm glad to see the Woos taking it on, just understand that this really is an unusual, if mundane, bit of history. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick.
Okay, Amy and Bill Bruger, you're allowed to speak.
Hi, this is Amy and Bill Bruger. I'm Bill. We're here in the mundane Murray house right now. We've been living here for 10 years, and so we know it quite well, and we've done a lot of the research. Some of the things people have said are incorrect. There were actually 10 cottages, but not 2. There's a lot of stuff that is we've learned about the house that gives us unique insight to it. And I think the first thing is that the book that Dick was talking about really showcases the views of the house that everyone sees. When he says it's very visual, like if people see it, that you can look at that book and see historic views of the house. And I think you'll see that will be restored and preserved and restored in a beautiful way with the plans that the Woos are doing. We are so excited about the Woos doing this project because we love this house. We're very passionate. We raised our children here. And what we see is this is an opportunity for the Woos and Larkspur to work together to preserve, as Dick just said, one of the most historic homes in Larkspur. And I think it's such an opportunity for an architect who's already done a beautiful job on the street to work with people who are willing to spend the money to do something that will be a beautiful addition to the city. It'll be great. And the concern, though, I have is that if we keep stalling, we're living here now. This house is falling apart. It is crumbling. It really is. And if it's not viable, then what do we win? What happens? Yes, maybe we preserve something, but what does it become? And I think, as an earlier speaker said, we have to move forward in a way that preserves and honors the past. Walking up Murray Lane after the Woos complete this, if he rose from the dead, Mr. Murray would say, that's my house. There it is. It's beautiful. It would still be there. And that's what we should focus on. I mean, I know there's a lot of people here who know a lot more about historical architecture than I, but I'm probably more passionate about this house than they are. And I see Wayne and Jared and working together, and Amy, to create a really beautiful addition to restore and create something that Larkspur can be proud of. We will be on the house will be up here on the north part of Larkspur, and it will be a representation of the past with something that is viable for the future. And so I really, really hope you guys can all get together. We're actually leaving in a month, but we love this house, and we really hope you can all come together and accept this proposal, because it really is what has to happen, or the house will fall further in disrepair and it will not be viable, and it would be a terrible shame. So that's all I have to say, but I really hope you guys go forward with this. Thank you.
And Mr. Bruger.
Amy's speaking now.
Thank you. I would just love to add, I don't know if it was clear, but we actually we were the first people to buy this home. We bought it almost 10 years ago, and we just fell in love with the historical charm, and we had really good intentions to restore the home, similar type project as to what the Woos have worked with Jared Polsky to bring to life. And it just became clear to us that, at every turn, there were just so many challenges and financial roadblocks that it didn't make sense. So when someone asked earlier if this discussion had been going on since 2019. It's been going on since we bought the house pretty much. And we were told at the time that the facade that needed to be protected and preserved was those images that you see, actually the
Larkspur past and
in
present.
the Larkspur past and present book. And that is the part that the Woos and Jared Polsky have worked so tirelessly to really to show that original facade. And that is the most popular view from the road. And, when people come by the cottage, I'm not sure whether or not the cottage will be, will be left standing. But right now, we looked into renovating the cottage about 8 years ago, and it was a tear down was what was determined. And it was going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to renovate a 400 square foot cottage that is dilapidated. And that was 8 years ago. So it's not that the home will fall into disrepair. It's already, we bought it in disrepair almost 10 years ago, and we couldn't find a way to make it happen for us. So we waited till our youngest was ready to graduate high school, and we put the home on the market. And we had a lot of challenges trying to sell it because of that report that was done in 2019. And when we spoke to, because it was so restrictive and so conservative, and when the architects of interested buyers came through the home, many of the architects felt that they could not figure out how to abide by all the rules in that 2019 report and also bring things up to speed, like doorways that are tall enough for a 6 foot tall person. That one side wing of the house that is on what was Murray Lane, historically was a driveway. So the part of the home on that side is really pasted together, a few different structures. And inside the home, it's very unattractive, very unlivable. People who come in have to duck through multiple doorways to navigate through that portion of the home. It's not really a matter of, I think Jared was being polite by saying that the integrity wasn't in that wing. What that wing is lacking is any architectural charm, beauty, integrity. The construction is sloppy. It's on a slab concrete foundation that's cracked in half. It was originally on a dirt floor, which doesn't seem to really correlate with a 1920s architecture. It looks nothing like 1920s architecture. So it was really just slapped together. It's heartbreaking for me to hear so much resistance to plans that are incredibly beautiful, thoughtful, and will do the home such incredible justice. And the amount of money that's going to be poured into it, really financially, I mean, it's funny money at that point. It doesn't even financially make sense. The Woos are willing to do that, and they're willing to, Jared Polsky made the 5 Murray Lane an incredible piece of architecture. He took the past, he added on, made it a strikingly beautiful home. And the same can happen here. And if it doesn't happen for the Woos, I doubt they're going to want to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars to make a home that doesn't speak to their heart. So we really do need to talk about finances. I know, the comment keeps coming up that if something is historic, it shouldn't matter how much it's going to cost. We really need to hold everything to a T. But I do believe that if we go back to what we were told when we bought the property about the views of the home that are shown in Larkspur past and present, and really just making it sing and making it beautiful and making it functional for today's living. That is, I thought that was the whole point of a historic board. And I'm incredibly grateful for everyone's time here and all of your attention to all these details, because Larkspur is full of such beauty and so many wonderful historic homes. And there's an opportunity right now for the Murray House to become one of them. But as it stands, this home is, it's literally collapsing. So we've been renting back and we're now finally moving, but it's in desperate need of repair. And I'm not saying that lightly. It's unbelievable that we've lived here this long in the condition that it's in now. So thank you so much for your time and for your consideration of this incredible project.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak before we move on? Okay.
All right. Does anyone have any comments that they'd like to mention?
Well, I'd like to thank all our speakers and especially Dick Cunningham giving us an eloquent history of Larkspur in a brief time. I think it's very enlightening to hear so much about the property and as well as the neighbors' endorsements of it being remodeled and preserved. So I appreciate everybody's comments.
Yeah, and you know, it is, I totally agree that the Woos deserve credit for their intention of, you know, bringing this house into the 21st century, and we want to help you do that, but we need to make sure as a board that the plans meet the standards that we're obligated to, you know, adhere to. So that's what we're discussing, and there's a lot. I mean, I've spent a lot of time going over the Department of the Interior standards, as I know, I'm sure everybody else has that's still in this meeting. So, and I'm sorry that we didn't have a chance to look at the revised ridgeline. Wish we could have had that sooner, or at least had our historic architect take a look at that. Rich, do you have comments?
Yeah, you know, I've spent a lot of time looking at the house over the years, looking at this most recently, looking at the plans that have been submitted over time. And I really appreciate the fact that a family that's so treasured in Larkspur is going to be taking this on and doing it and living here and making this their home. As I look at the requirements of the Secretary of the Interior standards, though, I see ways that this renovation project can comply. And I'm leaning towards saying we should request that the applicants resubmit in such a way that the project is in compliance.
Okay.
I would say that's kind of what I was thinking as well, partially because of that we actually don't know what the new revision looks like. So maybe they've already done this. I mean, you know, maybe if we continue the application for the purpose of allowing the applicant to prepare the appropriate revisions, maybe those revisions have already happened so that it fully complies with the Secretary of Interior standards. That looks like a reasonable option to me.
Because I do think that there's some conditions that would probably need to be met to qualify both Sequa and Department of the Interior standards. And getting back to the 4 items that Jerry had mentioned, and it sounds like you're already working on a couple of those. And I think we're getting close. I do think that we need to look at the porch. And I know you're sort of diminishing the north view and you're saying that it's not important, but that is part of the structure. That's part of the west wing of the logging cabin. So I don't know if there's a way that you can revisit that and see about maybe just extending maybe an overhang, or there could be something that, you know, retains the element of a porch there. I think you're addressing the massing issue. You've come up with a creative solution to the cottage, but I'm not sure if that's something that would satisfy the standards. And what was the 4th thing? The cottage.
You got them all.
I got them all. Okay. So I don't know. I mean, maybe maybe we need to think about, and I don't want to delay this, and I don't want this to be seen as a delay, but
Right.
As it stands now, this, in my view, this these plans are not satisfying, and we as a board have an obligation to make sure that a property, and we've seen a lot of projects over the years, and we have an obligation to make sure that a project satisfies those requirements. And I think we're close.
I would agree, and I'm sure it's frustrating to the woos, but it seems like there's been numerous times where these 4th items have been not addressed. I mean, the preservationist, Jerry, certainly made that clear that once again, she feels like those items aren't addressed, and I'm sure it's frustrating to the woos, but it does seem like we're close, and it seems like there could be some accommodations on how to make that east porch more close to the historical nature of it. And so I feel like there's tweaks to be made, but I'm sure from the other side, it's very frustrating. But we do have an obligation to make sure we adhere to guidelines. And so I'm kind of inclined to say, I hate to say it because I'm sure it feels like another delay, but perhaps they need to try to resubmit and show the changes they had intended on making that they addressed a couple of days ago we haven't seen for the roof line, and then maybe address the other 3 items. And I think we would have to visit. It was very clever how they handled the cottage, but I agree, I'm not sure if that actually complies with what's required.
Because if you look at the Department of the Interior, the updated guidelines from 2017, they're very specific about porches and new construction. Those are the 2 elements that I'm sort of focusing on, because if you attach a new addition in a manner that obscures, damages, or destroys character defining features of the historic building, well, that's it. Smaller issue, but I think where they say constructing a new addition that is as large or larger than the historic building. And that's the case here, because the original building is 2,361 feet and the addition is 2,913 feet. So it's about 600 square feet bigger, and the ridgeline is higher by about 4 feet, even though you're pulling it back on the north side. We're pushing the limits here, but that is a Department of Interior recommendation. That's what we have to follow. Okay, and then they're very specific about a porch, and that they have a whole separate section on entrances and porches. And I'm sure that many of you know this, and I'm sorry if I'm just sort of repeating what you know, but they're very clear. The Department of the Interior says removing a historic entrance or porch is not recommended. So I think maybe it's important to revisit that north or the west porch. And also the other thing that's not clear to me is the elevation of the driveway. And just looking at the way it, like the north elevation that in the plans, and then the cover drawing, it looks like there's some sort of like retaining wall that's there. And I'm not sure how tall that is. It looks like that's maybe 4 or 5 feet. So we can't really see the total mass of that addition from the north side. So that might be something to address as well. I think there's probably going to be some grading there, or I'm not sure what's going on there, but yeah, that view. You can't see the, the bottom half of the new addition.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think the third thing is story poles. Because I think that would help us determine, especially with the new revised ridgeline. This is an important project. And I'm sorry if it seems like we're taking time, but we are taking time. We really want this job to be right. We want the Woos to be happy with it and to feel like the community is behind you. I know a lot of people are, judging by the phone calls, but you want everybody. You want this project to be solid. So, Kristen, what are our options in terms of, do we need to make a motion for continuation, or what? Can you give me some guidelines here?
Definitely, you have the option to continue the project and ask the applicant to prepare revisions that would be more in keeping with the standards as you've laid out in your discussion, if everybody is in agreement. I'm going to allow the applicant to talk because I think we need to make sure they're willing to move in this direction. If not, and we can't make the conclusion that it meets the standards, then I do have to take a look at the Sequa requirements.
Which is what the woman, the caller, Amara Morrison, the attorney, was talking about.
Right.
Okay.
Under Sequa, the Secretary of the Interior standards allows us to apply a categorical exemption if the city determines, the lead agency determines that the improvements meet the Secretary of the Interior standards. And that's what we typically move forward under when we take a project to the Planning Commission.
Okay. So in other words, if we find that this project meets the Department of the Interior standards, then that circumvents the need for an environmental review.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's a big issue, by the way.
Okay. Well, yes, I'd like to hear from Jared.
Jared's been allowed to speak. He's on.
Okay, great.
Well, it seems like we have few options other than to let it be continued. Just to be clear, are you saying specifically that you want us to enlarge the east porch, somewhat like the photograph rather than what it is now? Number one. Number two, are you saying that we have to keep the tar papered roof on the north side, going to the existing door? And if so, at least we want to be clear. Number three, that we somehow have to save the north facade of the cottage. And number four, you would like to see drawings of how we're lowering the entry portion of the roof of the main structure. Are those the four things that you want to see?
That's what I'd like to see. Rest of the board, anybody have input?
I think generally yes, but I also did agree with Jared and the Woos that it did seem Jerry's report on the porch, like undoing something and then reconstructing something to look old, was like an interesting, funny idea. And I don't know if that could be clarified. I was confused about that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we could do that. it's not impossible to build it, to try to match it. I mean, I think that the tar papered roof, the sway back roof that goes to the the north door, it just seems like it's clearly a later addition. It was not, I mean, we don't know exactly, but just look at it. It doesn't fit, it's horrible. But if we have to keep it, I guess we could build around it. It just seems, it seems that to keep that piece to meet the Department of Interior's guidelines seems a little odd to me. And the facade of the cottage, if you're okay with our what you said, somebody said creative solution of preserving just the facade, and that's all we have to preserve, by the way, by attaching it to the building or putting it up as a display, that we can do. So we just need more clear direction on those four.
I'm not seeing anything about the tar papered roof line in.
Yeah.
She says to keep the sway, it's a I don't know, it's a suede roof. I don't know how to describe it.
In that upper image right there.
The upper image in the corner. Yeah, right there.
Right.
She wants to keep that. And it just seems, you know, if you saw that entrance, it's obviously was added sometime in the, you know, not that many years ago to have a cover over the then changed front door. The front door is always on the east side, and somebody put a door on the north side.
I'm still not seeing that in her response to the resubmittal. Like she specifically lists 4 things: original front porch, the east porch needs to be restored to the configuration shown in the documentary photograph. Number 2, the original rear west porch and original rear
right
door.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's the one.
Right.
We contend that that's probably not original, and it looks, it sort of mars the whole. Just take a look at it.
Okay, I see. The original.
If we have to keep it, if that's the only way to move forward with the project, I guess we could. It just seems odd.
And what is your proposal? Just to eliminate it entirely, or?
Yeah, it's no longer a front door. It's no longer the entrance.
Right.
Just the covered roof portion.
But there wasn't, so you're eliminating the door, you're eliminating both the doors on the north side.
But we'd like to take out the door, make it a window, and take out that porch, because it leads to nowhere.
Okay,
And,
so
and
but basically.
it's about 4 feet tall. That's what Amy was trying. That's what Amy was trying to refer to. Is like, you know, it's like it's a average height person cannot walk through that door.
Okay, so there were originally 2 doors on that north, whatever you call it, the loggers wing.
No, that's not the loggers cabin is the in this picture is the right, that's the loggers cabin. We're preserving that. We're not touching that.
Yeah, this is the historic front of the house.
Yeah,
or
that
figure
we
9.
preserve.
Wait, I can't see where you're, because I'm looking at the plans.
Well,
Right, okay, so yes, all right. So then what do you call the wing that's going from east to west behind the loggers cabin? That.
We're calling that the west wing, which is
The west wing.
It has 2 gabled roofs inside the attic. If the roof has to be rebuilt, it's in terrible condition.
Okay, so the west wing is the one that has the north, on the north facade, the existing north elevation, there's 2 doors there, and that's what Wayne was talking about, the 4-foot tall doors.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you also see like this 1960s style like clear window.
Yeah.
So you know that whole side is, I think right here. This image right here.
Yeah.
This image right here, like the clear window thing. Like
right.
You know, the to us it just seems like on a reasonable person's sort of viewpoint is this whole side is just a hodgepodge of things that people did at some point. You know, this tar roof that's caving in, this 4-foot door which is next to that tar roof on the left in the image, this clear, you know, rectangular window. The door is I think made of like aluminum, like
Jerry said it was okay to change the window, the door,
Yeah.
but she wanted to keep that little roof there.
Yeah,
I mean, can we do it? We could. It just seems very odd to me.
But you know, if you look at it, you've got a symmetry between, you know, the east side of, you know, the original porch or whatever we want to call it on the east side. And on the west side, you've got another little porch there. I mean, I don't know how odd it is really. And it made sense when there was a door there.
this looks much more, I found in thinking about this for a long time, it looks much more mundane on a screen, and when seeing it in person, it's much rougher. And I think looking at that porch area, it just doesn't fit. Like, you know, you look at the historic front, which is the east side, you're like, okay, this all kind of makes sense, which is where, you know, the image on the screen right now. But that porch on the other side, there's no real symmetry to it. It's like someone putting up, I don't know, like a hodgepodge roof at some point on the other side of the house.
Should provide a drawing for that one.
The beam holding it up is a 2x4.
Yeah, it's like a it's like a 2x4 that someone
hanging up.
slapped.
Okay.
Like, you
And
know,
the end of the 2x4 is nailed to the door trim.
yes.
I mean, we're talking.
That's the porch roof that you're describing?
We're describing
on
the
the north.
this
Yeah,
one,
yeah,
the one on
yeah,
the screen right here.
Yeah.
So when you look at your drawing on the north elevation, you're just eliminating that little roof.
Right.
We're eliminating the
Floor
little.
is gone.
It's no longer an
Right.
Is the doorway also gone, or is that being?
We would rather make it a
Gone.
window. We'd rather make it a window than a door, but if we have to keep an old door there, I suppose we could.
That's the 4-foot door. Like, I don't know if it's exactly 4 feet, but it's the one that, you know, you better duck.
Keeps the tall people out.
It does, that's true. Or even average height person.
But it kind of goes into a bathroom now, but.
And then you're going to replace the plate glass window.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And both Garibaldi and Jerry Holland were fine with us changing the windows and doors on that.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
we were actually sort of surprised that because they seemed to be fine with changing the north facade, but why Jerry would like to say, and the Garibaldi thought we could take this left porch off, but Jerry suggested otherwise. We were surprised at that.
Yeah, I am too. I've been, but
I would agree with that also. It seems like the porch was definitely added on at some point and not done as tastefully as some of the other additions.
Yeah, definite afterthought somewhere along the line.
Okay. Well, then maybe we can take that off our list of requirements.
Oh, it helps.
To retain that porch on that northwest corner. I'm just putting it out there just to see if how the rest of the board feels about that.
Yeah.
Be in agreement with that.
I am too.
Me
Okay.
too.
Okay.
I would say that it's a little bit dangerous for the board to be specifically prescribing what should or shouldn't be done. That really is the purview of the architect and the clients to
Okay.
satisfy the requirements. And they may come up with some very inventive ideas we haven't even talked about right now, but the sentiment I think here is that there should be compliance, however it's achieved.
But isn't compliance?
So just to recap, you know, so in our reapplication, would you like us to try to recreate the east, like the original front porch based on the pictures? Is that what the guidance is?
Yeah, I'm confused about that too, because it seems to me you said that that would mean taking things apart and putting new, making
That's
it.
correct. We would be removing the porch as it stands and trying to
Rebuild it.
recreate it through black and white various pictures.
This is a practice that's quite common in this area.
Okay.
When things have been replaced or deteriorated to a point where you can't maintain and repair. In this case, that porch was probably rebuilt several times over the years and years. And that's why you lost the original porch, because it's been rebuilt. So you have the opportunity, if you see it meets the standards, to return it and you replicate that feature, but the body of the house is still there. You're simply sort of like when we get a haircut in a dye job, you know, we're trying to recreate a little bit of a look we like.
Right.
You don't want to tear down a house and rebuild it to match. That's
No.
replication.
No.
But this is restoration, rehabilitation. Where
Right.
you can replace certain features to bring it back to a more historically appropriate appearance.
I mean, it seems like it was one of the most significant features of the house. So
Yeah.
it would make sense.
Yeah. And just judging from the photograph with the family, it's hard to estimate, but it looks like the porch is much deeper, right? Would you say maybe 6 or 8 feet from the steps to the front door?
Jerry
And currently,
probably knows.
Well, there's just that old photograph. We can try to figure out the proportions. There it is.
So know that we love that side of the house. We are much more open and receptive and supportive if that is the guidance from the Heritage Board to try to recreate the porch from the picture. So like as I think about from a reasonable person's, I totally get why we'd want to invest behind trying to bring this side of the house to life, because this is the side of the house that's in all of the family photos. So I totally get that. We are happy to do that if that's the recommendation. We are much more passionate about the west wing that is when we've had to look at it so much of like this is just something pasted together with a tar paper roof with a 2x4 holding this tar paper roof still there. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to us, but like we're open to recreating this front porch of the imagery that we find. So we're very open to that.
that's good. That's really good. Yeah, because I'm just looking at the drawing that you have from the front of your, this drawing.
Yep.
The cover elevation. And it looks like it's sort of a narrow, like maybe 3 or 4 foot at the most width porch that kind of goes over to that other door. And you could almost expand it out where you could put a table and really bring that's like the dominant facade of the house, historically speaking. I mean, you could really bring that porch to life. And you probably have better access to photographs. I mean, from what I have in the book and what I've seen. Yeah, I think that would be the emphasis to me, that east porch.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean that's actually a wedding photo. I mean that's why I love that side of the house. I mean and I spoke to Thomas Peterson about it, who's one of the descendants of William Murray, and they talk about that side, the wedding photo that you see in Figure 14. And that's why we are totally open to investing behind beautifying that end. We struggle more on like why we're trying to keep stuff that was clearly just pasted together at some point on that west wing in the bottom picture that's sort of blocked by the family photo there. Like that, we struggle with that. And we struggle with the financial viability of dealing with the cottage. Like as Amy mentioned 8 years ago, trying to rebuild a standalone structure where that's called a pool house or what have you. Like it was $400,000 8 years ago. You know, it basically, it just throws everything out of whack where I don't know if we'll build the house because it throws, it's the way construction costs are going. I've gotten increasingly nervous about building this at all, to be honest with you. You know, when we made the video and we made that video in June, because this is how long this is all taken. And, you know, we've lost a lot of heart for this, to be honest with you. So like the cottage part is just so expensive to maintain. That's why we're trying to find more reasonable ways to do it, you know? And then the height issue, we feel like Jared's come up with a very elegant way to solve for that. So we're very supportive of that too. So for us, the things that are like, we would struggle to move forward if we can't make some adjustments to that west wing facade with the tar paper roof. And if we have to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into the cottage, but we're totally supportive of investing behind the east porch, the original front of the house porch, you know, where the wedding was, and then adjusting the front porch as Jared showed in terms of the new front door area.
Okay.
Well, this is a dialogue again. We're not.
Yeah.
We recognize
no,
that
it's
you are the
helpful.
experts in the heritage. We're just trying to figure out how to actually find a happy balance where, because we love this house. We want to cherish William Murray's legacy. We love that front porch. That's why we're totally open to it. So we love that side of the house. And it's just, we're frankly very scared about the cost of all of this.
I understand
If I
that.
may just say, like, I know we're investing our life savings to restore this house, our life savings. And it's a significant project, as we've noted, that we are happy to do. And we are passionate about doing it, but it is hard to do everything that is asked. There is a limit to our life savings. I will just say that.
Because we're 2.2 million in cash into this house. If this dilapidated house is probably going to fall down at some point, you know, and that's just the reality of the situation. And that's basically our whole life savings. And then we need to go get a loan to basically do the rest of it. And that's the reality of where we're at. And so we understand that you know there's the standards, and we want to try to comply. We're just trying to, you know, figure out
There's a limit.
how to make this reasonably happen for us, and
I have a
this house
question
doesn't fall down.
that's a little bit, just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
That old carport, that's going to be your garage, or do you have any plans of putting in a garage at some point or some other structure there?
No, not really. You know, if you've seen some of the images, the Brugers currently park their car there now. In fact, you know, we are building a driveway. You know,
it's a nice
we have a garage now.
Garage.
We have a garage now in our house in Corte Madera. I can't remember the last time I actually parked my car in there. You know, so look, you know, the garage, we thought about a garage for a long. It's just we prioritize trying to make sure that we could adhere to all of the historical guidelines that Amy referred, that scared away every other potential buyer over their 10-year history, you know. So we prioritize trying to figure out how to navigate all that. And, you know, we feel like, well, the Brugers park their car in that carport, then we probably can too.
We currently park our cars outside.
And we park our cars outside now in our Corte Madera home. But it's hard to navigate all these variables. You know, we're trying our best.
So I would like to take the conversation away from the financial issues, because your job here is
Correct.
to review the project for compliance with the Secretary of the Interior standards, and how that is achieved there isn't only one way to achieve this. Jerry's made some suggestions. One, there are options for preserving what could appear to be a cottage on the property, such as retaining the elevation and putting it on the pool house. That was a suggestion that hasn't been really considered, and it seems that perhaps they could if they were willing. And the modifications to the new wing, they seem to be trying to work in conjunction with what's suggested by Jerry to get the massing down and replacing the porch. That goes a long way here.
Yeah.
Great. And ultimately, the lead agency determines compliance with the standards and then compliance with Sequa. I would like to not end up in a position where we can't determine it complies with Sequa or the standards, because then we have to do an evaluation, the environmental evaluation, and that would delay things much more and cost much more.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it behooves all of us to try and find a way to meet the standards in as creatively as possible and get this project moving forward to the Planning Commission. And I would recommend, if you want to see the changes to the plans, that we continue this and you give them some direction to try to work with our historic architect to meet the standards. Does that satisfy?
Yeah.
If you have very specific things you think are really important to achieve, then you should make that clear.
Well, my main concern was the massing of the new versus the old, and maybe this new design has answered that we don't really have before us.
I agree.
Mine too. Yep.
Yeah, mine too.
Mine too.
Kristen, I have a question related to that. Would the Planning Commission need to see story poles?
Yes, and if we're going to continue this, we can ask for story poles to be installed. You have to forgive me, I forgot to remind them to get them up when I decided to schedule your hearing.
Okay. But they would need to be put up anyway for the Planning Commission.
Yes.
For that leg, okay.
Absolutely.
That would help a lot to visualize the old and new.
Secondly, I just have one other question. I just wanted to get reassurance that all original materials, as much as we can, would be preserved and would be specified on the plans, and any proposed new materials would be specified.
That's supposed to be happening now.
Okay. So that's a important.
I can't zoom in.
There should be notes on all the drawings saying what is new and what is preserved, and and what is there are notes to that effect.
He did request those notes be added to the plans, and I believe they are. They're probably in this little red box that I can't read. It's so tiny.
Okay, and I'll get my magnifying glass. So Kristen, do you think the best approach right now would be to just create like a bullet point of 3, maybe 4 items that we would like to see in the next meeting, the next board meeting?
Revisions, you mean, that you'd like to see them explore?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I think we've pretty much covered everything, but do you want me to give a synopsis, and everyone can feel free to chime into at least my understanding of what we will need for the next meeting? And my question too would be, at what point would Jerry, provided they do make these revisions, and we're assuming that they will be in compliance with the standards, but that would have to be affirmed by or confirmed by Jerry.
Yes.
So at what point would she see Jared's revisions? Does she get that before it comes back to us?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have to get a response as to whether they meet the standards.
Okay. I guess my only worry is that if we said, for example, that northwest tar paper roof, as they're calling it, if we said that maybe is not necessary, if Jerry turned around and said, oh, but that's crucial, we need to have that to comply to the standards. I mean, I don't want to be like promising or saying, oh, or throwing something out that actually we would need. So,
Okay, so why don't you order your recommendations by priority? Like, what is your first priority? Is it
Okay.
reducing the massing? Then that's your first one. Is it the replication of the front porch? That's first, and then the massing is second, or however you want to order them, and make the porch last, with the caveat that the board would like the historic architect to determine if this project can meet the standards without retention of that porch.
perfect.
Perfect.
So what do you think? What's the priority, massing or the east porch?
And for me, it was the massing.
Yeah, I would agree. The
Me too.
massing
Me too.
and then the porch.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
And then third is
Cottage.
Incorporating the cottage.
And whether that'll meet the standards. Yep.
And whether, exactly.
But I think, in simple terms, what we're really hoping for here is that the applicant will work with the historic architect and come to something that can be presented where they both agree that this complies and it's satisfactory, regardless of the individual elements we're talking about here.
Great. I certainly want to say that I can see the Woos are making a really concerted effort to make this work. And there's something to be said to be able to say a historical property is going to be preserved. And so I certainly appreciate the efforts you're making, and hopefully you'll be able to, seems like it's very close, be able to come to an understanding with Jerry.
Yeah, I think so too. I have one more question. These things pop in my mind. Jared, do you have any thought, or you discuss this with your clients in terms of the overall color scheme for the house? Like right now it's yellow, but in some of these photographs, they're black and white, of course. It's hard to tell what color the house was originally. Gesundheit.
Back to the original white that the house was.
Okay, so you're thinking you would revert back to that original
The white,
color?
the white. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so Kristen, how do we do this? I propose a motion.
Yep, and order the priorities and give me some direction on the west porch.
I want to make sure I get the terminology pretty close to what we need here so we can move this process along. The board would like to continue reviewing the proposal for the Wu residence.
So we're going to continue the application to a date or a date uncertain to give them the opportunity to revise.
We can do
Yeah,
that.
so we do, I think at this point, since we have to schedule a meeting, we're gonna have to go to a date uncertain, and then we will all immediately start planning what our next meeting date can be at the end.
Yeah, and we will make that as soon as possible because we do want to help.
Yeah, I would hope we could do it as quickly as possible for the Wu's sake.
We need to make sure they have had a good time to get their story pulls up.
Okay.
So we're going to
and-
continue to a date uncertain.
Right. With the provision that there will be 3 issues. Well, the following issues will be addressed, and then we'll maybe just, you can number them in priority order. Priority. The mass would be adjusted, which I think they're already in the process of doing, to be in better proportion, should I say?
Well, we can just use Jerry's language, right? The massing of the 2-story new addition needs to be reduced in order not to overwhelm the historic farmhouse.
Yes. See if I can, it'd be nice to use the actual language. Secondly, the historic east porch will be
Restoration of the.
restoration, yes. Thank you, Sonia.
Yeah, no, I've got it open to the right page.
Hey,
Yeah.
yeah, just use the language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think we said the third thing is
Cottage.
preservation of the cottage as an important part of the property's history.
Or at least perhaps an elevation.
Yeah, incorporating the cottage in such a way as, I think it's important to keep that reminder of the functionality of the property anyway, but you don't have to say that.
Yeah. And then last would be asking Jared, like, well, the last thing is that west porch in the north elevation, which Jerry said needs to be preserved and not removed, but that's that's sort of a question mark for us, right? Is that a point of compromise? Can that be something that is foregone and still meet the criteria in the main because of all of the other adjustments that will be made?
It seems to me, I mean, getting back to that north wing, or whatever we call it, that north elevation, that would be a natural place for the front of the cottage to be, because the cottage was facing north. And then that's more apparent from the public or the private lane, however you want to call it.
Where would it be? I'm sorry, north is the front down here.
Yeah, the north.
Yeah, like right.
This is one option, is to utilize that material into the pool house or pool.
Yeah, but that's behind a fence. The pool house is going to be behind a fence.
It's in the yard.
It's currently behind the house, like it is.
It's currently not visible from the street.
Right. It's right here about.
No, it's further back.
Further over.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
kind
there
of
we go.
behind the carport.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The cottage.
All sorts of like trees and stuff.
And there's a fence.
There's a fence there, like
Yeah.
you can't. That's part of our point is you can't see it now. Like
Yes, you can. You can see it.
you got to walk all the way onto the property, and
Well,
Gotta
if you
go
pull
for
up behind the carport. you
Okay,
can see it.
let's not dissolve into this conversation.
I agree.
And I'm wondering if the 6 foot or the low doors, if there's the historic building code can be applied in some cases.
Absolutely. It can be applied to the whole project on the historic aspects.
Okay.
But Kristen, I see what you're saying about putting the cottage on a pool house because it keeps it a separate building, which harkens to its original purpose.
Yes.
An outbuilding.
right.
And that was Jerry's recommendation, so we do know that would be something she would be satisfied with.
I mean, I think that's a good compromise because we're not asking to spend a lot of money to rebuild the cottage, but I think it's a good way to kind of, retain at least the facade of a very important part of that parcel's history.
So do you need a second to the motion?
Yes.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we're going to make a vote. I'm going to call out your names in a roll call. Board Member Storick.
Aye.
Board Member Goldberg.
Aye.
Board Member Gallant. Board Member
Aye.
Gallant.
Aye.
Board Member Langto.
Aye.
And Chair Culhane.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Jared, I'm going to take you off the.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Hey,
Night.
thank you, everyone.
So I think since we have continued this application to a date uncertain, we need to talk about a future meeting date, just since the
Okay.
applicant is probably still here.
Okay.
Well, when do you think Jerry can?
I don't know Jerry's schedule, but I think we'd better just pick a date. And
And
we'll,
story polls, how long would that take?
well, I'm gonna put Jared back on. Jared, I'm allowing you to talk. Realistically, how long do you need to get story polls up? Is he still there?
He's muted anyway.
He's still in the call.
Oh, there.
Sorry.
Can you hear
There we
me?
go. Yeah.
We couldn't find the unmute button. I would guess we can make the changes fairly rapidly. I don't think it's the architectural work is not vast. We can send it to Jerry. I don't know her schedule. We have a story poll plan, which we had to slightly amend. That was part of our application.
Yeah.
So
Already amended.
it's already amended.
Yeah.
So when can we get them up? Probably in a week and a half, 2 weeks. But it's all up to Jerry. Jerry's
Okay.
Okay, so let's do an early March. Do we have
Okay.
availability in early March?
Yeah.
You want us to, do you like Thursdays?
That's fine. I can do, we can't do the first Wednesday, that's council meeting night. And the planning commission is the 9th, or the 8th, I mean.
Thursday the 3rd.
Thursday the 3rd.
Sorry, I have a medical, like a pretty big medical thing happening the 3rd. So
I can't do the 3rd either.
I wouldn't be able to make it.
I thought you said there was
Tuesday
something.
the 1st, or we could go to Monday the 7th.
Tuesday the 1st works for us.
Yeah. Thursday,
Yes.
Tuesday the 1st.
Tuesday the 1st is fine with me.
I cannot do the 1st, so
Oh,
Oh, okay.
yeah. And Wednesday's council meeting.
Mhm.
What about the 28th? Monday.
That's
I have
February.
to renotice because we continue to a date uncertain since we didn't know how this was gonna work out.
28th is a Monday.
A Monday.
Monday.
And I could renotice by the 18th for that meeting date.
Okay.
That works.
Do you want to do that? Is that the,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, February 28th.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Same time?
Let's do an earlier time if we can. Is everybody available earlier?
Sure.
Anywhere between-
Yeah, I think Rich had asked about 5 o'clock meetings. Is that not good for people?
that would work. Yeah,
I
5 would be
did
fine.
7 because I misunderstood Sonia thinking we had to go later so she had time to pick up her children.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe that's,
No, 5 is fine, especially on Monday.
Okay.
I have
Great.
no-
Great.
and hopefully it won't be 2.5 hours.
No, it should be pretty
Yeah.
brief. I
Yeah.
mean, if these things are addressed, then it wouldn't take Jerry that long to review them, I don't think. She's very familiar with this project, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think this will take her long. There's only a few things she needs to be concerned about.
Good.
Okay. So I'm gonna remove Jared now.
Okay.
Okay, just so you know, we do have one other project that's gonna have to be heard, and it's gonna be probably a real discussion on your part as well. They might come forward with a study session because we're not finding it to meet the standards, and of course that triggers her, Sequa.
Right.
So it's one way to approach this is to bring it to you and give sort of in a study session so you can give them feedback to maybe hopefully find a direction that will get us toward a project that does meet the standards.
I think that's a good idea to have a study session.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know when they're gonna be ready to confirm with me what they want to do, but I think if we put it on the 3rd and this isn't resolved, then we may have too much in one night, so we'll see.
Okay.
You mean on the 28th?
I'm 28, sorry, yeah.
Mhm.
Let me see if we can resolve this first project and then,
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we need to approve meeting notes from last session?
are there any board members' reports? I think Rich had
Nope.
something. Rich, you wanted to bring up,
No, well, yeah, there had been an offer by Fran Capoletti to address the board and give us some perspective on his experience with historic preservation. And we just need to find the time to do that.
Yeah.
if he's available the 28th, if we're not going to do the study session as well, that might be a good night.
Well, if we start at 5 though, and it's a longer meeting than about an hour and a half, I'm in trouble. So
Yeah, me too. That's
I think he'd be fine, putting it off to the following meeting after this.
Okay.
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 Okay. Like in April sometime.
Yeah,
Okay.
March, April. We'll see what happens with this other project. Okay.
So we'll hang on to all of these documents, the attachments.
Yes, please. Don't lose those.
Pretty
Plan.
soon we'll figure out how to get through them easily.
I did
Yeah.
send you the electronic copy too. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
easier to read it that way.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah.
But you know what? It was a good primer on the Department of Interior standards. I mean, it was really good to just go through all of that.
Mhm.
Okay.
We have approval of the minutes.
Yeah, I motion for approving the minutes from our last meeting.
I would second.
Okay, all in favor? Do I have to call everyone individually? I forget.
No, I think we
No.
can.
Okay,
I think it's unanimous.
Aye.
I think so
Aye,
too.
aye.
Okay, so for the record, just because this is a recording, that was a 5-0 vote in favor of adoption of the minutes.
Mhm.
yes.
Okay.
I think that's it, you guys.
Hey, everyone, good night.
Thank you,
Bye.
everybody.
Well done, everybody.
Well,
Yeah, that
thank
was
you,
good.
Kristen, for leading us through it.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you, Kristen.
helping us conclude. We needed to conclude.
I thought you guys did spectacularly. So,
Thank you. Well, I'm glad they're already taking steps toward addressing the issue. So that was really, really good to see that.
Mhm.
Yes, yeah. Yeah,
Certainly
it is.
seems sincere.
Oh,
right?
wait, Fran has his hand up. Let's give him one last moment.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
There you go, Fran.
Yeah, I don't want to make your evening any longer. Well, one thing I remember, all I got to do on the board was one window project. Just to give you perspective, if I do talks, it can only be like 5 to 7 minutes too, if you want something short. So
Oh, I
depending on
think
what
we'd
you
like
think.
a real
Well,
full
okay.
conversation.
For a future meeting. And if I can get a hold of Chad Salter, I'd love to do Twin Cities Little League.
Oh, the history of it? That'd be cool.
Wow. That's
I
That'd be
remember
fun.
Chad from years ago, but anyway. So yeah, I will defer. I can get in touch with Kristen as far as the logistics of when and how long.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Thanks, Fran.
Okay.
right.
Yay. Good night,
right.
everybody.
night.
Good night,
Good night.
everybody.
All right, I'm gonna turn this off. I gotta stop recording. Pause.